Maya Collins walked into the big meeting room on the spaceship called UES Horizon. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She was much shorter than everyone else in the room. At 5 feet and 2 inches tall, she barely came up to the shoulders of the other officers. The room was full of tall, strong-looking people in military uniforms. They all looked serious and important. Maya found an empty chair near the back and sat down quietly. She kept her back straight and her hands folded in her lap, just like they taught her in military school. Admiral Grant Harrison stood at the front of the room. He was a big man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. His uniform had many shiny medals on it. He looked at all the officers in the room like he was studying them. "Listen up, everyone," the Admiral said in his deep voice. "We have a big problem. The Galactic Council just told us about a new enemy. They are called the HFY Empire." Maya listened carefully. She had read about the HFY in the secret reports. They were scary alien soldiers who had taken over many planets in the last few months. They were much bigger and stronger than humans. The Admiral pressed a button and pictures appeared on the big screen behind him. The pictures showed burning cities and destroyed spaceships. "The HFY have conquered 17 star systems in just 1 month," he said. "They are moving fast and destroying everything in their way." Captain Jake Morrison raised his hand. He was tall and muscular with short brown hair. Maya had seen him in the gym many times, lifting heavy weights and training with other strong officers. "What do they want, sir?" he asked. "Slaves," the Admiral answered. "They capture people from the planets they attack and make them work in their mines and factories. The aliens they don't need, they kill." Maya felt sick to her stomach. She thought about all the innocent people who were suffering because of these monsters. She wanted to help them, but she knew nobody would listen to her ideas. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Turner spoke up next. She was almost 6 feet tall with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. "What's our mission, Admiral?" she asked. Admiral Harrison smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "We're going to help a species called the Kethamori. They live on a planet called Kethamora Prime. The HFY are attacking them right now. Our job is to go there and help them fight back." Maya had studied the Kethamori in her free time. They were peaceful, plant-eating aliens who had never fought a war before. They were gentle and kind like Earth's deer or rabbits. The idea of them fighting the terrible HFY seemed impossible. The Admiral looked around the room at all the officers. His eyes stopped on each person as he gave out jobs for the mission. "Morrison, you'll lead the ground team. Turner, you'll handle the heavy weapons. Johnson, you're in charge of the vehicles." Maya waited for her name to be called. She had trained for years for a mission like this. She knew more about alien languages and cultures than anyone else on the ship. She could also fight better than most people thought, even though she was small. But the Admiral's eyes passed right over her like she wasn't even there. "Collins," he finally said, and Maya sat up straighter. "You'll stay on the ship and handle communications. The real soldiers will do the actual fighting." Maya felt her face get hot with anger, but she kept her expression calm. Around her, she heard some of the other officers make quiet laughing sounds. She had heard those sounds many times before. They thought she was weak because she was small. "Sir," Maya said in a steady voice, "I have the highest scores in combat training. I also speak 3 Kethamori languages and I've studied their culture for 2 years. I could be very helpful on the ground team." The Admiral looked at her like she was a child asking for candy. "Collins, you weigh about as much as my breakfast. The HFY are 7 feet tall and covered in natural armor. They would break you in half before you could blink." More quiet laughter came from around the room. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she didn't look down. She had heard worse things than this before. "Besides," the Admiral continued, "we need someone smart to stay on the ship and talk to headquarters. That's a very important job, too." Maya knew what he really meant. He thought she was too weak and small to be useful in a real fight. He wanted her to stay safe on the ship while the real soldiers did the dangerous work. After the meeting ended, Maya walked back to her small room on the ship. She passed groups of officers talking excitedly about the mission. None of them looked at her or asked her opinion about anything. Maya sat on her narrow bed and looked at the pictures on her wall. There were photos of famous warriors from Earth's history. Joan of Arc, who was small like Maya but led armies against much bigger enemies. David, who killed the giant Goliath with just a stone. Mulan, who proved that being small didn't mean being weak. Maya had studied all of these stories since she was a little girl. She learned that the strongest people weren't always the biggest people. Sometimes the most dangerous person in a room was the one everyone ignored. She opened her computer and looked at the mission files again. The Keth Mori needed help, and Maya knew she could provide it. She had spent years learning how to fight smart instead of fighting strong. She knew tricks that the big, strong officers had never bothered to learn. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the peaceful Keth Mori and the terrible things the Vexhai would do to them. She thought about Admiral Harrison's cold smile and the way the other officers had laughed at her. She had always been small. When she was in school, bigger kids picked on her. When she joined the military, stronger recruits said she didn't belong there. Even now, as a trained officer on an important spaceship, people still treated her like she was helpless. But Maya had a secret that none of them knew. While they spent their free time relaxing and socializing, she spent hers training. She studied old Earth military tactics from wars that happened hundreds of years ago. She learned how small groups of fighters could defeat much larger armies by being smart and quick. Maya had never gotten the chance to prove what she could really do. But as she lay in her bed that night, listening to the quiet hum of the space ship's engines, she decided that this mission would be different. The Keth Mori needed a warrior, not just another communications officer. And Maya Collins was ready to show everyone exactly what kind of warrior she could be. 3 days later, the UES Horizon arrived at Kethmora Prime. Maya stood in the communications room watching the planet on the big screen. It looked beautiful with its red forests and blue oceans, but she could see the black smoke rising from burning cities where the Vexhai had attacked. Admiral Harrison's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Attention all crew. The diplomatic team will leave for the planet in 1 hour. Morrison, Turner, and Johnson report to Shuttle Bay 2. Maya watched through the window as the shuttle prepared to leave. Captain Morrison and the other officers loaded their weapons and supplies. They looked confident and strong in their heavy armor. Maya wished she could go with them. The shuttle flew down to the planet's surface. Maya tracked its progress on her computer screen. Everything seemed normal at first. The shuttle landed near a Keth Mori city, and the team went inside to meet with the local leaders. Then something went wrong. Maya's screen started flashing red warning lights. She heard explosions coming through the radio. Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the speakers, full of panic and fear. "Mayday, mayday, we're under attack. Vexhai ships came out of nowhere. The shuttle is down. We need immediate backup." The radio went quiet. Maya tried to contact the team again and again, but nobody answered. On her screen, she could see that the shuttle's signal had disappeared completely. Admiral Harrison rushed into the communications room. His face was pale and worried. "What happened, Collins? Where's my team?" "Their shuttle was shot down, sir," Maya said. "I lost contact with them 15 minutes ago. The last signal came from coordinates near the main Keth Mori city." The Admiral paced back and forth, thinking hard. "We need to send a rescue team immediately. Get me Lieutenant Parker and Sergeant Davis." Maya stood up from her chair. "Sir, I volunteer for the rescue mission. I know the terrain and I speak the local languages." Admiral Harrison looked at her like she had said something crazy. "Absolutely not, Collins. This is a combat situation. You'd be captured before you made it past the landing zone." "But sir, I have the best simulation scores on the ship. I've trained for exactly this kind of mission." "Simulations aren't real life," the Admiral snapped. "The Vexhai are killing machines. They're 7 feet tall with natural armor and weapons that can cut through steel. You're barely 5 feet tall and weigh nothing. They would destroy you in seconds." Maya felt anger burning in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "What about the diplomatic team? Captain Morrison and the others need help right now." "I'll send a proper rescue team once I figure out the best approach," the Admiral said. "Your job is to keep trying to contact them from here. That's an order." The Admiral left the room, leaving Maya alone with her computers and radios. She tried, calling the team every few minutes, but only heard static. Hours passed with no word from the planet's surface. Maya couldn't stand it anymore. She looked at the rescue mission plans on her computer. The Admiral was planning to send a team of 20 soldiers with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. But that would take at least 2 days to organize. Captain Morrison and his team might not have 2 days. Maya made a decision that would change everything. She quietly left the communications room and went to the shuttle bay. Most of the crew was busy with other duties, so nobody saw her preparing a small escape pod. She packed light supplies, water, food bars, a basic medical kit, and a simple energy weapon. She also took her personal tablet computer with maps of the planet and information about Kethmori culture. Maya had studied the planet's surface for months. She knew about the red forests with their thick trees and dangerous animals. She knew about the mountains and rivers and hidden caves. Most importantly, she knew how to survive in places where bigger, stronger people would fail. The escape pod was small and basic, but it could get her to the planet's surface without being detected by Vex-High scanners. Maya climbed inside and started the launch sequence. As the pod shot away from the ship, Maya felt scared and excited at the same time. She was finally getting her chance to prove what she could do, but she also knew that she might die trying. The pod entered the planet's atmosphere and began to shake violently. Maya held on tight as it fell through the red clouds toward the forest below. The landing was rough and the pod crashed through several large trees before hitting the ground hard. Maya climbed out of the damaged pod and looked around. She was in a thick forest with tall red trees and strange alien plants. The air smelled like cinnamon and flowers. In the distance, she could hear the sounds of alien birds and other creatures. She checked her equipment and started walking toward the crash site where Captain Morrison's team had gone down. According to her maps, it was about 60 kilometers away through dangerous terrain. The planet's gravity was stronger than Earth's, making every step harder than normal. Maya's legs already felt tired after just a few minutes of walking. But she pushed forward, using techniques she had learned from studying Earth's ancient warriors. As she walked through the forest, Maya saw signs of the Vex-High invasion everywhere. Burned trees, destroyed Kethmori buildings, and the remains of alien vehicles littered the landscape. The peaceful planet had become a war zone. Maya heard the sound of engines overhead and quickly hid under a large tree. A Vex-High patrol ship flew by, scanning the forest with bright lights. She stayed perfectly still until it passed, then continued on her journey. For 3 days, Maya traveled through the hostile forest. She drank water from clean streams and ate fruit from safe plants that she recognized from her studies. At night, she slept in hidden caves or thick bushes where the Vex-High couldn't find her. She saw Vex-High soldiers several times during her journey. They were even more frightening in person than in the pictures. Tall reptilian creatures with thick armor plates covering their bodies and glowing red eyes that seemed to see everything. But Maya had advantages that the Vex-High didn't expect. She was small enough to hide in places they couldn't reach. She was quiet enough to move without being heard, and she was smart enough to avoid their patrols by studying their patterns. On the third night, Maya finally reached the area where the shuttle had crashed. She climbed a tall tree and looked down at the scene below. Her heart sank at what she saw. The shuttle was completely destroyed, scattered in pieces across a clearing. Nearby was a Kethmori village surrounded by enemy soldiers and strange alien machines. Maya could see Captain Morrison and the other humans from her ship. They were alive but badly injured, held prisoner in a cage near the center of the village. Around them, hundreds of gentle Kethmori were also trapped, waiting to be taken away as slaves. The small communication officer from the UES Horizon looked down at the impossible situation below. 300 armed Vex-High soldiers against one small human woman, but Maya Collins was no longer just a communications officer. 3 days alone in hostile territory had changed her. She had survived where others would have died. She had learned to move like a shadow and think like a hunter. Maya smiled grimly as she began to plan her next move. The Vex-High had made a mistake by underestimating humans. Now they were about to learn exactly how dangerous that mistake could be. Maya spent the whole night watching the enemy camp from her hiding spot in the trees. She counted the guards, studied their patrol routes, and looked for weaknesses in their defenses. The HFY were strong and well-armed, but they were also careless. They didn't think anyone would be brave enough or stupid enough to attack them. They were wrong about Maya Collins. Just before dawn, Maya climbed down from the tree and moved closer to the camp. She stayed in the shadows, moving from bush to bush, like a ghost. Her small size helped her hide in places where bigger soldiers couldn't fit. The first thing Maya did was find the HFY communication equipment. It was a large metal box with blinking lights and strange alien symbols. 2 guards stood nearby, but they were talking to each other and not paying attention to their surroundings. Maya waited until the guards walked away. Then she crept up to the equipment. She had studied HFY technology during her training, and she knew how their systems worked. She carefully opened a panel and found the main power cables inside. Instead of cutting the cables, Maya did something much smarter. She attached a small device from her kit to the power system. The device would make the communication equipment send false messages to other HFY forces. Maya programmed it to tell enemy reinforcements to go to empty locations far away from the village. Her plan was working perfectly until she heard footsteps behind her. "Hey, what are you doing there?" a HFY guard shouted in his rough alien language. Maya rolled to the side just as the guard's energy weapon fired where she had been standing. The blast hit the communication equipment and destroyed it completely. Maya smiled as she ran into the forest. The destroyed equipment would make it even harder for the HFY to coordinate their forces. The guard chased Maya into the trees, but she was much faster and knew the terrain better. She led him into a patch of quicksand that she had found earlier. The heavy HFY soldier sank up to his waist and couldn't get out. Maya took his weapon and left him there, stuck and harmless. Over the next 2 days, Maya became like a nightmare for the HFY forces. She would appear out of nowhere, strike at their supplies and equipment, then disappear before they could fight back. She used every trick she had learned from studying Earth's greatest warriors. She set traps in the forest paths, using fallen logs and hidden ropes to trip the heavy HFY soldiers. She poisoned their water supplies with harmless, but bad-tasting plants that made them sick. She even used mirrors to reflect sunlight into their eyes during the day, blinding them at crucial moments. The HFY commander, a huge reptilian creature named General Krov, became angry and frustrated. His soldiers were afraid to go into the forest alone. They saw Maya as some kind of demon who could strike anywhere at any time. But Maya's real goal wasn't to scare the HFY. It was to free the prisoners and get them to safety. She knew she couldn't fight 300 enemy soldiers in direct combat, but she could outsmart them. On the 3rd night, Maya crept close to the prisoner cages. She could see Captain Morrison, inside, his arm in a makeshift bandage. He looked injured but alive. Around him, dozens of gentle Kethmori sat quietly, their large eyes full of fear and sadness. Maya waited until the guards changed shifts. Then she moved to the back of the cage. She had brought a small cutting tool from her supplies, and she carefully began to cut through the metal bars. The work was slow and quiet, but eventually she made a hole big enough for people to crawl through. She whispered to the nearest Kethmori, a female with soft gray fur and kind eyes. "I'm here to help you," Maya said in the Kethmori language. "Follow me and stay quiet." The Kethmori woman looked surprised to hear her own language from this small human. "You speak our words," she whispered back, "but there are too many of them. We cannot fight." "You don't have to fight," Maya said. "You just have to be brave and trust me." Maya helped the Kethmori woman crawl through the hole in the cage. Then, she helped 2 more prisoners escape. She planned to free them in small groups so the guards wouldn't notice right away. But as the 4th prisoner was crawling through the hole, one of the HFY guards turned around and saw them. "Escape! The prisoners are escaping," the guard shouted. Suddenly, the whole camp came alive with enemy soldiers running toward the cages. Maya knew her careful plan had failed, but she wasn't ready to give up. "Run!" she shouted to the freed prisoners. "Get to the forest and hide." Maya jumped in front of the HFY guards, firing her stolen weapon at them. She wasn't trying to kill them all. That would be impossible. She was trying to give the prisoners time to escape. The Kethmori woman that Maya had freed first didn't run away like the others. Instead, she grabbed a fallen Vexhai weapon and stood beside Maya. "You helped us," she said. "Now we help you." More Kethmori prisoners broke out of their cages and joined the fight. They had never been warriors before, but Maya had shown them that even peaceful people could be dangerous when they were protecting their families. The battle was fierce, but short. Maya and the Kethmori couldn't defeat all the Vexhai soldiers, but they didn't need to. They just needed to create enough confusion to escape into the forest. As they ran through the trees, Maya looked back at the camp. She had freed about 30 prisoners, but many more were still trapped. Captain Morrison was still in his cage, and General Krav was already organizing his forces to hunt them down. Maya found a safe cave where the escaped prisoners could hide and rest. The Kethmori woman who had helped her was named Shauna. She was one of the village leaders, and she knew the forest better than anyone. "You are very brave, small human," Shauna said. "But the metal skins will find us soon. They have many soldiers and powerful weapons." Maya looked at the group of freed prisoners around her. They were scared and tired, but they were also angry about what had happened to their village. Maya saw something in their eyes that gave her hope. "Shauna," Maya said, "how many of your people know how to move quietly through the forest?" "All of us," Shauna replied. "We have lived here for thousands of years." Maya smiled. "Then I'm going to teach you how to fight back. The Vexhai think they're stronger than us because they're bigger and have better weapons. But they're wrong. We're going to show them that the strongest warriors aren't always the biggest ones." Over the next few days, Maya trained the freed Kethmori in basic combat tactics. She taught them how to set traps, how to move without being seen, and how to use the Vexhai's own weapons against them. The gentle plant eaters became something the galaxy had never seen before. Kethmori warriors fighting for their freedom. And leading them was a small human woman who had been called weak but had become their greatest teacher. Maya Collins was no longer just trying to rescue her fellow humans. She was starting a revolution. For 2 weeks, Maya and her growing band of Kethmori fighters struck at the Vexhai forces like shadows in the night. What started as 30 freed prisoners had grown to over 200 warriors. Word of their attacks spread through the forest, and more Kethmori came to join Maya's rebellion. The gentle plant eaters learned quickly under Maya's teaching. They discovered that their knowledge of the forest and their natural ability to move quietly made them perfect for guerrilla warfare. Soon, Vexhai supply convoys were being ambushed daily, and enemy patrols were afraid to enter the deep woods. General Krav was losing his mind with anger. His invasion force, which had conquered 17 worlds without breaking a sweat, was being torn apart by what he thought was a major human military operation. He had no idea that his enemy was one small woman and a group of farmers who had never held weapons before 2 weeks ago. Maya knew that hit-and-run attacks could only do so much. The main Vexhai force was still strong, and Captain Morrison and the other human prisoners were still trapped in their cages. To truly win, Maya would have to do something that seemed impossible: attack the enemy's main base directly. She studied the Vexhai camp from the hilltops around it. General Krav had over 200 soldiers left, along with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. The camp was surrounded by energy barriers and automatic defense turrets. It looked like a fortress that could never be taken. But Maya had learned something important during her weeks in the forest. The Vexhai were used to fighting enemies who attacked them head-on with superior firepower. They had never faced an enemy who thought differently, who used intelligence instead of strength. Maya gathered her Kethmori fighters in a hidden cave deep in the forest. Shauna and the other leaders sat in a circle around her, waiting to hear her plan. "Tomorrow night we attack the main camp," Maya said. "Not to destroy it, but to rescue our friends and end this war." An old Kethmori male named Elder Thas spoke up. "Maya, friend, they have too many weapons. We will all be killed." Maya smiled. "Not if we don't fight them the way they expect. Shauna, how deep are the old tunnel systems under their camp?" "Very deep," Shauna answered. "Our ancestors dug them long ago to store food during the cold seasons. But they are small tunnels, only big enough for our people. Perfect, Maya said. Too small for HFY soldiers to follow us. Here's what we're going to do. Maya's plan was brilliant in its simplicity. While a small group of Kethmori created a distraction on one side of the camp, Maya and 20 volunteers would use the underground tunnels to get inside the enemy base. They would free the prisoners and destroy the camp's main power generator, shutting down all the defenses at once. The next evening, Maya and her team crawled through the narrow tunnels beneath the HFY camp. The tunnels were dark and cramped, but Maya's small size made her perfect for this kind of infiltration. Behind her, the Kethmori moved like silent ghosts through passages their people had built centuries ago. Above them, they could hear the sounds of the distraction attack beginning. Explosions echoed through the ground as Shauna's team hit the camp's outer defenses with stolen HFY weapons. Maya and her infiltration team emerged from a tunnel opening right in the center of the enemy base. Most of the HFY soldiers had rushed to defend against the distraction attack, leaving only a few guards watching the prisoners. Maya moved quickly and quietly toward the prison cages. Captain Morrison looked up in shock as she appeared beside his cage like a ghost. "Collins? What are you doing here?" he whispered. "How did you get past their defenses?" "No time to explain, sir," Maya said as she began cutting through the cage bars. "We need to get you and the others out of here right now." As Maya freed the human prisoners, her Kethmori team members were freeing their own people from the other cages. The plan was working perfectly until General Krav himself appeared, having returned from the battle at the camp's perimeter. The massive HFY commander stood over 8 feet tall, his natural armor plating gleaming in the lights of the camp. He carried a huge energy weapon that looked like it could blast through solid rock. "So," General Krav said in his deep, threatening voice, "the famous ghost finally shows herself. You are much smaller than I expected, human." Maya stood between the general and the freed prisoners. Her stolen HFY weapon looked tiny in her hands compared to his massive gun. "You made a mistake coming to this world," Maya said calmly. "The Kethmori are under human protection now." General Krav laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One small human female thinks she can stop the might of the HFY Empire. You have caused me much trouble, little ghost, but now you die." The general raised his weapon to fire, but Maya was already moving. She rolled to the side as his blast scorched the ground where she had been standing. Maya's smaller weapon couldn't hurt the general's thick armor, but it didn't need to. Maya had studied the HFY armor design during her weeks of fighting. She knew that their natural plates had small gaps at the joints to allow for movement. As General Krav turned to track her movement, Maya fired 3 precise shots at the weak points in his armor. The general roared in pain and anger as Maya's shots found their targets. He swung his massive weapon like a club, trying to crush the Yao, small human who dared to hurt him. But Maya was too fast and too smart. She led him in a circle around the camp's power generator, dodging his attacks while staying just out of reach. Finally, as the general raised his weapon for what he thought would be the killing blow, Maya rolled between his legs and placed a small explosive charge on the power generator behind him. "Goodbye, General," Maya said as she pressed the detonator. The explosion destroyed the camp's main power system, shutting down all the energy barriers and defense turrets at once. In the sudden darkness, Maya and her team led the freed prisoners through the confusion toward the forest. General Krav survived the explosion, but his armor was damaged and his weapon was destroyed. As he struggled to his feet, he saw the small human disappearing into the trees with all of his prisoners. The HFY invasion force was finished. Without their commander, their defenses, or their prisoners, the remaining soldiers retreated to their ships and fled the planet. The Kethmori were free. 3 days later, Maya stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon as Admiral Harrison read her mission report. Behind her, Captain Morrison and the other rescued officers told their story of how one small communications officer had single-handedly defeated an entire invasion force. "Collins," the Admiral said finally, "I owe you an apology and a promotion." Maya looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. She thought about Shauna and the other Kethmori warriors who were rebuilding their villages. She thought about the lessons she had learned in the forest about what real strength meant. "Thank you, sir," Maya said, "but I think I'd like to request a transfer. The Galactic Council has asked me to help train other species in defensive tactics." It seems there are a lot of peaceful worlds that could use someone to teach them how to fight back. The Admiral nodded with respect. Commander Collins, you have my full support. As the UES Horizon prepared to leave Kethmora Prime, Maya Collins looked back at the planet where she had learned who she really was. She had left Earth as a dismissed communications officer that everyone called weak. She was returning as a warrior, whose name would be remembered throughout the galaxy. The Vex High Empire had learned a lesson that would spread to every corner of space. Never underestimate a human, especially one that others have called weak. Maya smiled as she walked to her new quarters. The galaxy was full of bullies who thought strength came from size and superior weapons. But Maya knew better now. Real strength came from never giving up, from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, and from proving that the most dangerous person in any fight was the one everyone ignored. The small woman who had once been overlooked by her own people was now feared by enemies across the stars. And that was exactly how Maya Collins liked it.